Yo, what's up guys, I'm Niek from Produce School and welcome back to a brand new video. Techno thrives on hypnotic and evolving sequences that shape the groove and energy of a techno track. However, many producers still struggle with creating professional sounding sequences that sound dynamic instead of really static and flat. In this tutorial, I will break down the key elements of a techno sequence. Whether you're creating acidic sequences, hypnotic sequences or drum sequences, I will show you how you can use built-in as well as third-party plugins to achieve the sequence you want. And I will provide you with a step-by-step guide on how to do it in both FL Studio and Ableton. I will add chapters to the video, so if you are only interested in FL Studio or Ableton, just go ahead and click on the chapter. Without further ado, let's dive straight into the video. Okay, so before I start diving into the practical part of creating sequences, I want to show you some examples and talk a little bit about techno sequences. A techno sequence is a repeating musical or rhythmic element that interacts with modulation and processing to create movement and variation over time. A strong sequence keeps a track interesting and evolving without sounding static. When it comes to sequences, I feel like it's worth differentiating between a few types of sequences, especially in techno, because they do differ a little bit, and I will provide you some examples right here. One of the purest form of a sequence is a techno acid loop, and for example, this is a loop from our pack Radiant, which sounds like this. And as you can hear, this type of sequence is really built around modulating certain elements such as the resonance, cut-off, the accents will really turn this into a typical 303 style acid loop. We now move on to an example which is a bit more abstract than that. For this, you basically use a sound that's so dissonant that you don't really follow a melody anymore, but you just get a really hypnotic kind of sound, which can sound like this. So really dissonant, sounding almost off key. You can also use sequencing to make drum loops. An example could be to create a ride loop like this. Playing around with the rhythm, velocity and panning in a sequencer can really give you great results for drum programming as well. So I'm going to start this video in FL Studio, where I'm going to show you how to make a sequence. And for this, I already loaded a few drum loops, so we can start creating the sequence on top of that. And the drum loop sounds like this. And then here in the channel rack, I loaded this acid sound. And for this first example, we're going to create acid sequence. Open up the piano roll and select a range, for example, 1 bar. And let's also loop that right here. And go back to the piano roll. And then we want to open up the randomizer tool, which is built into FL Studio. First, deselect levels. And then select pattern right here. This tool basically places random notes in a certain scale. So first of all, I will take you through some of the settings right here. So let's say you want it to be playing on a G sharp 3. Then the range here determines on how much it switches between certain octaves. So let's say you want a acid pattern that kind of jumps between octaves. Then you can set the range to 2 and it will add notes in a wider variety of octaves. Then right here you can determine the length of the notes, the note length variation, population, so how much notes you want to be filled in the bar. So the more you do, it basically fills it completely. Do it all the way to the left, it will be left with just a few notes. So you can definitely play around with that. Then a very important part is that you can here select a scale. And in this case, we can just take a minor scale. But for techno, you can also often use scales like the Dorian or Lydian scale to get a really dissonant sound. But honestly, for a acid sequence, a minor scale. So let's say we want a F minor scale, and then just let's listen to what it sounds like. Alright, so the thing with sequences is that it often doesn't really sound too good right away, because in the end it's kind of a randomized process. But that's why we have this seed function right here. And if you click on the pattern to the left, it will create a new random pattern. So you can basically start experimenting with this until you have a pattern that you like. Okay, I like this one. What we can do now is we can hit accept, basically loop this right here. If you want, you can do some manual variations to this just to make it more evolving and dynamic. So for example, let's try to change a little note right here. This is a really easy way to get a progression for a sequence like this. You can easily adjust to certain scales and just mess around till you have something good. But as you can see right now, for example, here the velocity parameters are not automated at all. So we want to go back to tools and then we hit randomize again, except now we turn off the pattern and then we go to levels. So right here you can actually start randomizing certain parameters. In this case, a very interesting one is randomizing the velocity. This one is linked to the filter cutoff and resonance. So that really adds to that acid kind of sound. So let's just try playing around with that. And the reason why I didn't do it right away when creating the 1 bar loop is that because when you will then copy it, it will basically play the same variation in velocity all the time. But in this case, I prefer to make it a bit more interesting by randomizing it for the full 4 bars. But it's really up to you on what you want to achieve. If you want to add even more movement, you can, for example, create an automation clip and create a sweeping automation like this. And you can do it also for the resonance, for example. Basically, the possibilities for this are really endless. So this really shows you how easy it is to create a nice sequence. So next up in FL Studio, I want to show you a really nice trick that I recently found out, which will really make it super easy to do drum sequencing. So what you want to do is you open up a drum sample in your channel rack. In this case, I have this snare. And we want it to be sequenced to a certain rhythm. So right click and use advanced fill. Now you get this little menu right here, which basically lets you fill random notes. And we're going to use the fill type Euclidean and then just hit the randomize length and step count button until we have something that we like. You can also turn this wheel to change the timing. And then if you open up the piano roll, you can see that velocity is also still static. So you can once again do the trick with the randomization right here. And even panning for drums, which can be cool. Let's listen to that. For example, this right, we can do it as well. Let's make it this. So as you can see, this is a super straightforward way to drum sequencing inside FL Studio. So if you have any questions about the techniques that I showed you, make sure to leave a comment down below. And now we're going to move to Ableton to show you the next part of the video. Alright, so I'm now in Ableton and I'm going to create some sequences once again. And for this example, I will first be creating a hypnotic sequence. For this, I'm using a free Max for Live device, which is called MDD Snake, as you can see here on the bottom left, which is a really powerful tool to create sequences. And it's basically just made for creating techno sequences. You load it into your channel, and then after that, you can load a sample or a synth. And then the MDD Snake will do the MIDI sequencing modulation. In this case, I want to go for a more hypnotic kind of sound. So I'm using this preset from Arpeg Radiant, which is called Hypnotize, and it sounds like this. So as you can hear, it's really dissonant, like almost as if the note is not really present in the sound anymore. And this will really allow us to create a really hypnotic groove. If you load the snake into your channel and if you will hit play, it will automatically start playing the sequence like this. That's the basic setting of it. So the approach of this is really similar to what we did in FL Studio. So you choose a key, which in this case could also be a Lydian or Dorian scale, since we really want that hypnotic techno feel. So let's just try the Lydian scale, and then we hit randomize. It first randomizes the notes that it will playing, all in the key that you selected. Then it creates a gate, so basically it determines the rhythm of your sequence. Then the certain velocities of all the notes. Then the gate basically determines which notes will be playing and functions as a rhythmic element. Then the velocities are determined right here. And the good part about this plugin is that you can actually manually change everything in it if you really don't like a certain small element of the sequence. I just hit random, and once again I'm now going to listen and do a process of trial and error to find a good hypnotic techno loop. So often you would now want the MIDI to get even more control, and for this you open up a new MIDI channel and select the channel that you have the snake on as instrument input right here. Then you hit record. That will basically record the MIDI from the snake into a new channel. Okay, so this is repeating anyway. So let's just get rid of the snake right now. And as you can see, we now have a very nice hypnotic techno sequence right here with MIDI. So you can basically change all the parameters you want, including velocity, notes. You just have a full MIDI overview of what's going on. Let me just replay it one more time, but this is really how quick and effective you can create these kind of hypnotic leads. And for drum sequencing, there's also a really interesting plugin that you can use in Ableton 12, which is this SQ sequencer. So let's open that up into a MIDI channel right here. And as you can see, it really has the Ableton look and feel since it's a stock plugin right now. And then let's try to add an element like a ride from Radiant. So just drag it right there. So right now we'll just play a 1/16 rhythm. And the nice thing about the sequencer is that with this button right here, you can first randomize the notes that we'll be playing. So you can first try to create a little rhythm, and after that you can also play around with the octaves, velocity and the length of the notes, and you can all randomize them individually. So for example, we could use this rhythm and then randomize the velocity and also play around with the length. And you can do this for all elements. So let's say we want to add a clap on top of it as well. Let's just go for a 909 clap. Then we load it in and do the exact same process once again. And that's basically how easy it can be, both for synth sequences and drum sequences. So with the tools that are available right now, there are basically no limitations at all. If you're interested in techno sounds, we just released our new pack Radiant, which is a full techno producer bundle that contains samples, presets, loops, and much more. If you want to check that out, head over to the link in the description. If you have any questions about the material that I discussed in this video, just make sure to leave a comment down below and we'll try to get back as soon as possible. For now, I want to thank you guys for watching, and I see you guys in the next video.